Hello again, and welcome to another classical music podcast from the Kirov Academy. Our guest today is the Kirov's own music artistic director, Dr. Yang Suk Lee. Dr. Lee is a renowned performer and teacher whose educational background has been with some of the most renowned Russian and Soviet teachers. She is a juror in high demand for many international competitions, and it is an honor an honor and a pleasure to welcome her to our program today. Please welcome Dr. Lee.
Hi, Emil. Thank you for
Hi,
introducing me. Nice to see
thank you
you.
so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I thought we could go sort of in almost chronological order, talk a little bit about you and your musical background, and also, what you do now as not just a performer and not just a teacher, but also as a juror, as someone who prepares students for international level competition and international level careers. But to get to there, let's start more at the beginning. So could you tell us a little bit about your background educationally?
Yes. Um, well, I studied piano, of course, in Korea. I was born there. And after Sunhwa Art School for 6 years, I went to Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. And I got to study with Mr. Gary Rothman, who all of you know very well. He's one of the greatest pianists of the 20th century and great teacher. He's known for teacher of Lang Lang and Yu Wang, but many people don't know he's a teacher of Yang Suk Lee. Uh,
But we should point out that getting even admitted into the Curtis Institute is something like winning a major competition, because unlike most conservatories, in any given year there may be one, maybe two openings,
yeah, according to how many graduates each year.
but
They
also
have
how
a,
many are just admitted to attend. It is very selective.
yeah, just the how many openings they have each year, how many
Oh, it
graduates.
depends on how many graduate.
Yeah, because everybody's on full scholarship, so they cannot take more than certain numbers,
Exactly.
whi- which is
And
just
this,
orchestra, one orchestra, and plus about 20 piano students and
that's it.
some accompanying majors. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah. I think the entire student body is less than 200 people, right?
right.
Yeah. So
It's
yeah,
very
just to get into, yeah, and it's a great achievement. It's a great accomplishment to be, admitted. Do you remember how you prepared to audition for so demanding a school?
how to prepare for the audition. Well, in my younger days, what should I say? I was practicing basically all day, preparing all the repertoire. Um, well, that's what I can recall.
Was
I was just
was
lucky.
there? Oh, I don't think luck has ever anything to do with such things.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
luck
wh-
has to do a lot.
you think it has a lot to do?
Yes,
Luck?
but it comes with your effort. If you put your effort completely, then luck comes with you. I think.
I don't remember. I think it was an athlete who was complimented on, a lucky shot in golf or tennis or something, and he said yes. And the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Mm, that's true. I think
Yes.
that's universal law.
But so before Curtis, which was you went there for college, right?
Yes, Seoul National University for 1 year, and
And
I always wanted to come to U.S. To study because Curtis, Juilliard, they are best schools in the world. So
yes,
after 1 year, I tried auditions. Curtis, Juilliard, Manhattan School of Music, and Mannes College, four schools. and I was so lucky to be accepted in all.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Um, I know that the level of admission to something like Manus or Manhattan School, although it is definitely bigger than Curtis, we're still talking about out of 100 applicants, they may choose not two, but like 10, 5, something like that. So when did you study with Oksana Yablonskaya, the Russian teacher and pianist?
Well, after graduating from Curtis, uh, I went to Juilliard for my master's degree, and I met there. I met her there.
I see. So she was your professor at Juilliard.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Well, apparently you
after
know
that,
her very well.
yeah, we were just catching up a little bit before the broadcast. I pointed out that Oksana and my mother emigrated at the same time. Our emigration paths crossed. So she has known me since I was about 5 years old. Um, she will certainly remember my mother. I hope she remembers me. And I still remember her son, Dmitry Yablonsky, who is, of course, a wonderful cellist and conductor. Um, so after Curtis and after Juilliard, did you head out into the wide world, or did you feel you needed preparation?
Well, I went to London to study with Madame Maria Curcio Diamond
Mm-hmm.
uh, for a for a year or so to prepare for the international competitions. But actually, she didn't prepare me for the competition, but she made me find more depth in music, and she developed my tone, uh, sense of sound quality, and how to produce a sound, how to use your technique, all sorts of things. She reorganized my knowledge on piano playing.
Would you say that the whole atmosphere of these schools is so different? Curtis is so sort of almost like a large family. Juilliard is almost like a Shark Tank. Uh, would you say that your perspective changed not only because of your teachers but also because of the schools?
Um, Not really. I mean, musically nothing changed. I mean, you just grow and learn to become a musician. Uh, but it wasn't easy to get adjusted to Juilliard after a
Yes,
cozy, like a family feeling, family relationship at Curtis. And then you suddenly go out to the world. Just being at Juilliard was really quite a shock to me.
but
New
it was
York,
more of a social impact than a musical one. Would you say?
yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, you get to meet a lot of people in different.
I still remember Juilliard pre-college. The feeling of pressure. uh, what I remember from my experience, tell me if your experience was different. My experience was that I didn't realize what the pressure was like until I wasn't there anymore. So I went to Manhattan School of Music after Juilliard, and it was a very different sense, but I had no idea that I could expect that before I went to Manhattan School.
Uh-huh. So you felt so much pressure at Juilliard.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for me, not musically. I wasn't stressed musically, but just being in a, I don't know how to say, it's different atmosphere. And of course, there's so much competition, but uh, I wasn't really part of it. I was just studying on my own, so it didn't really affect me.
So it is possible to make your own sort of path, regardless of what the school's personality might be. It's possible to still be yourself, you would say.
Yes, I think so. It didn't bother
It,
me too much.
it's something that I sometimes discuss with
Probably
my
you were,
students.
yeah, probably you were not used to in a competitive atmosphere until you went
Well, remember
to college in Korea.
before Juilliard, I went there when I was 10. So I had only been playing the violin for 2 years when I went there, and I didn't really
Yeah.
know anything about, well, anything. But now when I
Yes.
talk to students about what school to go to, I try to think with them about where they will find the personality of the school, to not be completely alien to their personality as an individual. Um,
It's important. Yes.
but it's good to know that if you have a strong sense of yourself, after all,
Oh,
after
but
Curtis, I'm sure.
I was an adult. I was already, 20 something years, and I could manage myself. But for young kids, it's difficult to be in an environment that you feel alien.
Especially when you're studying in a foreign country, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So, would uh, you say that the kind of um, atmosphere that you try to create at the Sanhua School, do you think back to what it was like to be a student, or is it just you have a particular vision of a school now that is determined by right now, not by your past?
I mean, for classical music, for performing arts, you need to devote yourself to many hours, to devote many hours to practicing. That's the fact. So, um, any musical programs, I mean, you cannot talk about musical programs without atmosphere of certain tension
And
and
discipline.
discipline. Yes, that's the most core.
What is the kind of normal day for students in Sanhua like?
Yes, I mean, somehow art school, they have, uh, academic and music subjects. They study both. So they go to school from morning and they finish about 3 o'clock, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Hmm.
And then some go home and practice, and the others maybe to practice facilities. For And in a practice facility, there's always somebody who's monitoring you, watching you, if you are really practicing it or not. At home, maybe mothers they're sitting in,
Well,
you know,
yeah, but I can tell you war stories from myself and from my friends about how we all try to fool our mothers, even those of us like myself with musician mothers, to make the mothers think that you are practicing when in fact you are reading a book.
oh, you're very skilled.
One of my friends recorded 10 minutes of scales and arpeggios and played that on a recording so that his father would not, you know, disturb him. Um,
No, no, no.
at the at the Central Music School in Moscow, what my mother told me about it sounds very similar to the Sanhua Art School, where it was academics and music. And their day went from, I think, 8 or 9 in the morning, so it wasn't a very early start, until about 4 or 5. So a little bit like Sanhua in that. She said, first thing, they didn't have homework. So when school was finished, they could just practice. The rest of the day was theirs. Is it like this with Sanhua? Is homework
Unfortunately,
a big thing?
yes. Unfortunately, they have to study hard academic subjects in order to get to best universities in Korea. So music students actually they work double amount,
Wow.
putting their efforts in academics and music.
And
But it's amazing how they manage it. So after they finish practicing around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and they come home and they do homeworks and study,
wow.
and I don't know what time they go to bed.
and the next day all over again. Are there only academic classes during the day, or do you have
Oh no, including
musical?
both. Yes, both musical.
So they will have chamber music, and they will have yeah.
Chorus, orchestra, you know, music theory, solfege, music history, everything.
And those musical subjects, are they like if you have music theory, is that every day or is that twice a week? How often is that?
Oh, once a year. I mean, sorry, once a week.
Once a year would be a little. And now we will learn everything from Buxtehude until Chopin tomorrow. Um, yeah, so once a week for theory and once a week for ear training, and then several times a week probably for orchestra, right?
Yeah, once a week for 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I remember the pre-college lineup was for Juilliard, for Mannes, for Manhattan School of Music, theory, ear training, private lesson, chamber music, orchestra, and that was one time a week. On Saturdays, my day would go from 9 until about 3 or 4
Mhm.
at both at all three of those schools. So in San Juan, the students are uh, until age 18 and then they go to college, or does it go past?
Yes, they go to college when they are
Uh,
18. Some go to universities in Korea, and a few might apply for universities abroad.
yeah, but how young do students come into San Juan? What is the
Age,
youngest?
age of 12,
Age of 12.
because it's
So
middle
not
school
not
there,
elementary school.
not elementary. So when I had the gifted and talented program, that's for the young age, from age 5 or 6 up to, oh, it can be 16, 17.
So that's the sort of not full-time enrollment, but you are a student at the
Like
school. Then you are taking music
pre-college.
classes
On Saturday. So
on
it's like
Saturdays,
pre-college.
like pre-college, right? Yeah. Um, do those are those kids that are part of the gifted and talented program? Do they sometimes? I mean, I assume they are aiming to become full-time students at the school. Yes.
Yes.
And then they, aside from, of course, aiming for the university path, they will presumably also aim for the competition path.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, competitions from young age. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assume that there's local competitions, of course, but also the international contests. Paganini competition, Queen Elizabeth competition for violin, and so on. Um, do you have any like general thoughts about the usefulness of competitions, not only to build a career but to develop a person's playing?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Tell us. What would you say the usefulness is?
But learning much more repertoire, you must play, you know, all the repertoire. And when you have a goal, you practice harder. That way, I think it's really um,
It's
developed.
it's very difficult in my memory. It is very difficult to go into a practice room when the only thing you're practicing for is your lesson each week.
Mhm. Every
There
day,
has to
same
be a
thing.
yeah.
You must have a goal. Yes, I think it's
Yes.
very good for students to develop themselves. I can tell you in gifted and talented program, 12-year-old boy winning the Moscow Chopin competition, the youngest ever in their history, and
Right.
14-year-old girl winning a young Rubinstein competition in Poland. So, you know, these young kids, when they have goals, they really go for it, and they can achieve more than they think, more than they are supposed to do, you know. And it's really exciting to watch them really doing
I
well.
mean, the entire system that prepares them is not just successful. It is its results really speak for itself. I just again, I'm thinking back to my own student days and competition days afterwards. Um, whenever I saw a student, whenever I saw a competitor from certain countries, I knew that this was going to be probably a serious competitor. Some countries, not so much. If I saw somebody from, outside a particular circle, if I saw somebody from Brazil, I wouldn't know what to make of them. Maybe they're wonderful, maybe they're not. I've never heard of, strong contestants from there. But every time that I saw a competitor from South Korea, I knew that there was a spot in the final round that was being contested. That person would probably be there in the finals. Um, so a system that does that is definitely doing something right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Can you
tell you
tell us?
about the system. Yeah,
Yes,
the
please.
system. Um, well, of course, there are many kinds of students, but most ambitious ones, they have sometimes two or three teachers. They have primary teacher and a secondary teacher who helps them to practice, and sometimes they go to master teacher to polish their pieces. So, uh, studying with multiple teachers, it gives them, it makes them more perfect. You know what I mean?
Well, that requires a certain kind of student.
Yeah. And in the program, in our gifted and talented program, we we make a lot of opportunities for them to perform. So after going, before going to competition, they play the repertoire over and over again, here and there.
That's
That's
very
more
important.
most important.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Mr. John Perry about this last week. The kind of support system that the Soviets provided for, let's say, my mother, is so different than the kind of preparation that he did by himself, that he was forced to do by himself. And one of the biggest things that a system can provide is performance opportunity, which means that anything that my mother played in a contest would have already been performed for several months, dozens of times. So you walk out onto a stage to compete, knowing the repertoire as completely as you
So good.
possibly can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the key. And I had a training from Mr. Gary Rothman. Um, Gary told us to play every piece from memory for his lesson, even for the first time. So every week we had to learn, learn and learn. And in the lesson, uh, of course, he doesn't stop us. He doesn't stop me playing until I get through the end.
Hmm.
So play through. It really helped me a lot to understand the music overall and to move quickly to the next level. And it really
Yeah.
helped me. So,
I
uh, yeah,
I
okay.
assume. I mean, when we're talking about Curtis, we're talking about anyone getting in. It does not require help from a teacher to play their instrument. They already are a master of their instrument, or they wouldn't be in the school. They require help from a teacher to understand the piece, to understand what the instrument can do beyond what they knew. But I imagine it goes without saying that when you come to a lesson with somebody like Gary Graftman, with somebody like Jerome Lowenthal, like John Perry, um, when you show up, you already know the piece. You're not showing up to be taught how to play the notes. Yeah, I'm
What do you
pointing this
expect?
out. Well, I'm pointing this out sometimes to listening students and prospective students who become used to walking into a lesson essentially, and I have seen this so many times. It's embarrassing. They essentially will almost sight read for me and ask for my help in figuring out, how to play this note after that note.
Figuring.
Yeah. Um, so once you are once you finished your education, once you are now a professor and a competition juror, did you notice anything that you hadn't expected in your student days as a juror, for example? How different was it to be on the other side of the table?
Well, it's quite different, I must say. Um, but in a way, contestants, they are nervous because they are they come to competitions to compete. But after all, we are playing the music. So when they play well, as jurors, we enjoy listening to them and we really appreciate. So, I mean, they have to know we are, as teachers, as jurors, we are the teachers too. So when you go to competition, you don't have to be nervous to death, you know, just you can play music, enjoy, and well, we'll see how the results come. That's another story.
But do you
Another
find as a juror, do you find that you your colleagues sometimes have a particular vision of a particular piece, and if a contestant plays in some way that is different, that the more that someone teaches rather than performs, the more they have a less flexible vision of the piece. They don't want to hear it played differently than they are used to teaching. Have you experienced this?
Yes, many times. Mhm. Everybody has different perspectives, and yeah, it's true. Ones who perform more, they have more flexibility of understanding, I must say.
I just know that the first time I was on a panel that was not local, that was international, um, it really was a little bit of a surprise to find um, how the how the way that you relate to your colleagues on that panel will change the results. To find how somebody, you know, can see the exact same piece that you both grew up playing completely differently from you, and because of this difference in vision, you pick contestant A and they pick contestant B, and you cannot, you know, reconcile. What has been your experience when you hear someone play in a way that you love, but their vision is so different from another juror's that that other juror cannot vote for that contestant? What has your experience been?
Well, as you said, it happens a lot, all the time. It happens. You know, somebody can play Beethoven very well, but then he might not play, other repertoire as good as in the first round.
Yeah,
Every round. Um, I mean, you in the first round you love the playing of somebody and you expect to hear a certain expectation, but in the second round, not as good as in the first round. So, competition it's a how can I say? It's like a puzzle. You never know how the result will come out.
I have
And
found that just to see the results of piano competitions, you can see the same person, in the final round, but they don't always get the same prize, of course. The playing will take you into the final, and in the final, the preferences of the judges may, you know,
it seems that every juror seemed to agree with somebody who's superb. I mean, if there's somebody really superb, everybody agree. But when they are, uh,
Comparable.
then
No, but when
I
when the when the different players are interchangeable, you forget, did this person play Beethoven Opus 111, or did they play a Chopin ballade? I don't remember. That says something about the player. The player is not registering in
no.
your awareness. So, do you have any particular suggestions for uh, the students listening to this podcast? Do you have any suggestions besides perform your repertoire frequently, besides trying to play for the kind of people that will be on the panels, so you know how they listen? How do you advise that these students practice besides just putting in the time? What should they do in the practice room?
Well, first of all, I think choosing the repertoire is the most important thing. You have to choose the piece that you can play the best,
Mm-hmm.
not from somebody's expectation, or who plays better, or uh, I mean, you have to choose the pieces that you can play the best. But then it doesn't happen that way because you have to play a lot of repertoire in each round. You have to show the diversity of styles and characteristics of the pieces, and you better hide your weakness as much as possible, but it doesn't come easy.
No, of course, to
Choosing,
to
yeah,
choose repertoire like that, you also have to, and your teacher has to also understand what it is that you are strong in.
yeah, that's where the teacher's role has to come in. Teacher has to really uh,
Yeah.
help to choose good repertoire. And I think as a jurors, we we listen for people, we listen for contestants. Uh, I mean, for the music, you know, somebody who really plays his or her own music, own interpretation.
It's just, I'm thinking back to a recent uh, competition where I sat, I think it was 2 years ago. Um, and I remember one particular contestant who played the Franck Sonata. And it was really interesting. There were ideas there that I've played the piece for, my whole life. Um, and there were things there that I had never considered. A fingering here, a bowing there, a phrasing in this other. It was really, really interesting playing. Unfortunately, it was also out of tune throughout. So, I kept thinking to myself, why does it have to be either somebody is technically brilliant or somebody is musically interesting? Why, of course, if you have both, it's easy. Then you say, okay, this person is obviously a winner. What do you do when you hear a pianist who is an original thinker, who may make you see a piece that you have known your whole life in a new way, but they miss lots of notes? What do you do?
In that case, I I rather say you need a double standard. I mean, you can like somebody's playing, you know, or not, but um, thinking about the result of the competition results, you cannot always vote for your opinion. You know, I mean, if somebody plays so many wrong notes and out of tunes, he's not going to be one of the winners. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, although you find many good things in contestants, but I mean, they cannot connect to the results.
So after the competition, you tell them that I wish I could have voted for you. I mean, this is what I said. I wish I could have voted for you. I thought so many things were great, um, but
But I mean,
you
how
know,
can you appreciate if somebody's not perfect in technique?
a
I
note.
mean, it comes
It's important.
together with the music. It comes together.
Yeah, exactly. If the music comes together with the ability to play, but it's important to make the distinction for again for the listeners. It's not that the pianist played a perfect performance of the Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto, but played a wrong note in the first movement. I I don't care,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's different when it's one wrong note versus handfuls throughout.
that's a different story.
So overall clean, and that is your price of admission. This is what you have to have in order to not just be you know dismissed immediately. And then, of course, you have to have something to say.
Performing arts, any form of performing arts, once the has been done, you cannot go back to fix it. So until you give performance, you need such a good preparation. Just for the moment on stage, you, yeah, that's what we are practicing and working hard for that moment. So
Yeah,
we expect such an expectation in competition. I mean, you have to have a fantastic. You have to give a fantastic performance.
definitely there
I mean,
shouldn't be.
if you don't know pieces well, I mean, what's the point of going to competition?
Yeah, why are you there? Yeah,
Why are you there? But
but I
actually, as
mean
a
there.
juror, uh, if that happens, it just it gives us just to enjoy. Just looking at the looking at the screen.
You're making
You don't have
you're
to be part of the thinking and how many points.
but you're
But
reminding me actually of the face on a friend of mine who was on the same panel um, when one player who was playing not well, um, and he was not playing musically well, he was playing not technically well, but I was just sort of sitting there like, okay, well, here my job is easy, I vote no, you know but I looked over at this friend of mine, and he was looking at me like, listening to this bad performance was making him angry. You have flown me across the world to sit here and listen to this. you know um, yeah, it's a good idea before you go and before you compete. It's a good idea to make sure that you know you are prepared, you are ready for it. um, Speaking of which, I thought you might want to tell us a little bit about the upcoming competition that the Kirov is hosting, that the Kirov is organizing, I should say, because there are a number of very unusual characteristics about it.
yes, we are having uh, e-piano competition, but for the first time in world's history, we are using the stereo piano from Steinway. It's a world high resolution player that records every nuance, tones, and pedaling. Uh, no, I mean, in Korea, I tested playing on the stereo piano, and after I played, and I was just standing next to the piano, and I was listening, and it's thrilling to hear what I played. I mean, have you ever played?
I've never
Have you ever listened to your playing just next to you? No, it's kind of feeling.
only in a recording, and of course, then it's not the same.
It's not the same. You know, uh, so far, you know, we had experiences of listening through some kind of device, but stereo piano, it, it's just piano. I mean, you hear the piano sound,
So the judges are listening to a piano in the
Yeah,
same room as them.
yes, it's
And
exactly the same performance, but without a player.
yeah,
So, they can record from, Beijing or Tokyo, Seoul, anywhere. And they can send us the data and we can,
and the piano will turn the data into a
yeah,
performance in the
right,
same room with the judges.
same room with judges. It's
And
marvelous.
I'm both amazed at this and a little jealous because we don't have the same ability.
See?
Um, because when you have international competitions where the first or the selection round or the first round is done by recording, I've always thought there's such a wide range between somebody who goes and has a professional recording done, somebody who has home equipment in their school's concert hall, and somebody who has home equipment in their living room. And all of these recordings get sent to a competition, and then the participants are chosen based on this completely unequal field.
Exactly.
So what we have is a field that has been made equal for all players. Your performance
Yes,
will be on the same instrument as your competitor's performance, and that instrument will be what the judges are listening to. It's fascinating. Do
yes.
the contestants have to record on a stereo piano also? How does that work?
Hmm. Yeah, where they live, they go to Steinway and they
Oh,
play there. And yeah, and
so every
they
Steinway
can send.
showroom should have a piano like this?
Yes, we have researched almost Steinway shops in big cities. They have
Hmm.
stereo piano. And
So
oh,
so presumably if
yeah,
you live not in Paris, but you live somewhere within an hour drive and your local Steinway shop does not have it,
yeah,
you,
then
you can
they
drive
can
into
come to
Paris
Paris.
and
Yes.
right. It's brilliant. Um, can you tell us a little about the judges and how the rounds of the competition? How many rounds will we have? How many judges?
Yeah, we have 3 rounds. In preliminary round, we select 12 semifinalists through the videotapes they send. And from the semifinal, as we just said, they go to Steinway and they record on stereo. And they send us files
Hmm.
and we'll listen semifinal round in Seoul and Washington in the
Uh-huh.
same day, but with a little different time zone, say. And then we choose six finalists. Finalists. In the final round will be at the Kirov Academy in Washington with the world-renowned jury. Jury, I can tell you, the chairman of the jury is Mr. John Perry and Ms. Marianne Hahn from Peabody and Dr. Raymond T. Jackson, who offered a prize for the African American young pianist.
Hmm.
And who else? Ah, Mr. Julia Martin from Juilliard, and and me, of course.
Oh yes, that's right. So the final round is, of course, not with orchestra um, in
Or solo.
these times.
Well, we hope that Spirio can develop. They are in the process of developing uh, performance with the
Mm.
orchestra, so one can
Wow.
play a concerto. Yes, maybe next year. I don't know,
Yeah,
in the near future, they can play a concerto on the Spirio.
it sounds like a new world completely.
Mhm.
So
Exciting
the
work.
first, so the first round is going to be, you said, video. The second round on the Spirio piano, the third round on the Spirio piano. Um, Is there any limitation to the number of contestants for the first round?
No. For the
Everyone.
first round, yeah, as many as possible. They can send us videotapes and we can listen for days, no problem.
Can we talk a little bit about the prizes? What is offered to the winners of this competition?
Right. Yes, we offer winners concert at the Kennedy Center next season in 2021, and also the performance at the Embassy Series concert. We are in partnership with Embassy Series, and also the Steinway. Uh, they offer grant, Steinway grant.
Oh wow!
Yes, we give scholarships to our summer music festival next year. We invite them to come to the festival. And what else?
Well, I'm assuming that there is some interest in people considering going to the Kirov Academy.
Yes.
So hopefully this makes an introduction to the Academy for contestants all around the world, for pianists all over the world. Yeah. What we should probably also sort of describe is a little bit about the Academy and what the Academy offers to international students especially, but to all students. How would you describe the Kirov?
Right. I mean, for young students, you have to go to school to study academics, and you have to go to lessons, and sometimes to college to study music courses. I mean, it's just here and there. But at the Kirov Academy, we offer full academic courses and music courses all together. And also providing, I mean, we've been providing this curriculum for 30 years already. Kirov Academy has 30-year history. So I must say, very good curriculum. And there's a benefit that they can come and study and learn from their peers too. As you know,
but also just the opportunity to play. The Piano Legends master classes are
right. We connect them to world master teachers.
I certainly, I had in going to colleges, I had the opportunity to play for some people that ordinarily I would not ever be able to meet, much less play for. It's a resource beyond what a private teacher can offer, just because it is an organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In this year, we invited Mr. Rothman, Mr. Jerome Lowenthal, and Mr. John Perry. I mean, all these world masters. Where can you meet them?
Exactly.
And
especially,
also, yeah.
Especially somebody like Mr. Grafman, who, aside from being a living legend, is someone who can offer a tremendous insight. If you are thinking of auditioning for Curtis, who better to play for than the person who, for how many years was he the president? Somebody who can explain to you what it is that will happen in the audition process. When I did competitions, when I did auditions, it was very rare that I would have a chance to know beforehand whether this thing that I was working so hard at was even going to be noticed by the people listening to me. And having one lesson with somebody on a jury, for example, would have been an enormous advantage. And instead of one lesson, Kirov offers an ongoing, a constant stream of contact and lessons with and master classes with the legends of the musical world.
there's no school like this in the world, I can say.
Yeah.
Yes. And like
What would you
you,
say? Where would you say the school is headed? What is your goal?
our goal is to produce a full-fledged artist. Yes. To support them, to support young musicians to become really well-rounded musicians. So we really want to have a good support system. We need a system to support them. I mean, it doesn't matter how talented a student may be, but one cannot achieve to become a musician by himself. They need
Yeah.
support from their teacher and from their parents, absolutely.
Oh
And
yeah.
of course, they should be talented and with drive and ambition to become a musician. And we make a musical environment for them, and we give all the information about competitions and auditions and how to apply for the music programs in college. We try as much as we could do because we are musicians and we know how to go by. Let's
And
see
how difficult it is to really
how
make
difficult it is. Mhm,
an entry.
mhm.
I mean, I'm hoping your description of the Sanhua Art School, my memories of my mother's descriptions of the Central Music School. I am hoping to be part of something that is. I'm looking forward to and working towards being part of something that is um, like that on American soil, where I don't think that there has been an institution like that pretty much ever. It's always been, the arts have always been something that you add to your academic education if you have the time, if you have the inclination. Here, we have the resources and we have the system tried and tested already in place. So, do you have any sort of closing thoughts about where the Kirov is and where the Kirov is going?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very privileged to work at the Kirov Academy as an artistic director. And as we all know, we really want to make a best best school in the world. And um, well, we cannot forget competitions. I mean, competitions make students to grow rapidly. Uh, so I like to suggest to suggest them to go to many competitions as possible. And our eternal goal is to make them really good musicians and keep this tradition of classical art, classical music. So I'm very excited and grateful uh, for this time, and I look forward to our work in the future.
As do I. I am proud to have joined the Kirov. I am really anticipating uh, great things and great developments. I think that when you are trying to make your way in a field that is as um, difficult to define as the arts, um, to have an entire building full of mentors and guides is indispensable. Um, and I hope that my past and my experience will help me to be a useful and, more than hopefully more than useful mentor to a next generation. The arts are not some little add-on that you can take or leave. I think they are integral to being a human being. And the better you are at the arts, one might say, the better you are at the task of being a human being.
Definitely.
So Thank you very, very much for joining us. It was, like I said before, a privilege and a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you at work.
Okay, thank you, Emil.